Hollywood's golden age dazzled audiences with charm, beauty, and polished star power, yet behind that sparkle lurked far darker truths. While fans adored these celebrities on screen and in person, some of them carried secrets far more sinister than scandal. They had taken lives. The glamour of classic Hollywood masked a world where studio fixers and influential lawyers erased damaging stories before they could spread. Carefully crafted public images hid the reality that a few famed entertainers weren't just playing killers on film. They were responsible for actual deaths. These tragedies weren't special effects illusions, but real losses, often swept aside by powerful studios eager to protect their stars. Some deaths briefly hit headlines before being pushed out of public memory, while others were hidden completely until long after the fact. Studio publicists did far more than cover up affairs or addictions. According to former entertainment journalist Margaret Collins, they concealed violent crimes, paid off police, and intimidated witnesses whenever a profitable celebrity was involved. Today, we're exposing one of Hollywood's darkest legacies, 10 major stars from its golden era who ended real human lives. Some acted out of drunken rage, others from jealousy, and a few insisted it was all an accident or self-defense. But in every case, someone died while the industry made sure the spotlight stayed bright. These aren't just shocking anecdotes, they illustrate a system that valued profit over accountability, where fame itself could shield someone from justice. 1. William S. Burroughs, the writer who shot his wife. William S. Burroughs, later celebrated as a beat legend and cult film figure, wrote groundbreaking works like Naked Lunch. His haunting look and monotone delivery made him unforgettable, but so did the fact that he killed his wife and suffered almost no consequences. In 1951, during a drunken gathering in Mexico City, Burroughs announced he would perform a William Tell act. Joan Vollmer balanced a glass on her head. He aimed, fired, and shot her directly in the forehead. She died instantly. There were witnesses, and even Burroughs never denied the basic facts. What followed showed how privilege worked for Americans abroad. Despite the fatal recklessness, Burroughs spent only 13 days in jail. His wealthy family hired a powerful attorney who secured his release on a small bail. Burroughs fled Mexico before the trial, was convicted in absentia, and never returned to serve time. Even more disturbing, the killing eventually became part of his artistic myth. Instead of ruining him, Joan's death was later framed as the dark event that activated his creative drive. Burroughs made unsettling comments, suggesting the tragedy pushed him toward becoming a writer. While he went on to international fame, Joan Vollmer, an important early beat thinker, became little more than a footnote. She died at 28, her life erased while Burroughs thrived as a cultural icon. 2. Gig Young, the Oscar winner who killed his bride. Gig Young, known for suave roles and his Oscar-winning performance in They Shoot Horses, Don't They?, projected sophistication and charm. But behind the scenes, he battled alcoholism, depression, and increasingly alarming behavior. In 1978, only 3 weeks after marrying his fifth wife, 31-year-old German actress Kim Schmidt, Young committed an unthinkable act. Inside their Manhattan apartment, he shot Kim and then turned the gun on himself. Friends knew he struggled, but few imagined he was capable of such violence. The shocking murder-suicide revealed the devastating reality that even acclaimed Hollywood figures could hide catastrophic personal turmoil behind a polished image. The bodies were first found by the building's security chief after friends reported that their calls had gone unanswered. Young had fatally shot his new wife and then turned the .38 on himself, a murder-suicide that stunned Hollywood. No note, no motive, and no specific warning signs emerged afterward. Though Young battled alcoholism and depression, the sudden brutality shocked everyone around him. What made the case even more unsettling was its timing. He had barely begun married life with Schmidt before ending it in violence. Friends said he seemed mostly pleased about the marriage, though some had noticed changes in his mental health in recent months. Their wedding celebration had only just passed when the couple was found dead, a jarring contrast between joy and tragedy. Champagne toasts celebrating their union had not yet faded before their bodies were removed from the apartment they had only just begun sharing. Though Young's career had been fading, he was still well known for films like Teacher's Pet, The Three Sisters, and his Oscar-winning performance in They Shoot Horses, Don't They? One act instantly transformed him from a respected actor into the man responsible for a shocking murder, erasing any chance for the comeback many expected. His case showed how easily someone can mask violent impulses beneath charm and sophistication. After decades of playing polished, urbane characters, he left behind a final act that redefined his entire legacy as a prelude to the violence that ended his life.
The comeback killer, Paul Kelly. Kelly accomplished something almost unimaginable. He killed a man with his bare hands, served prison time, and still returned to Hollywood for a thriving second career. His story remains one of the industry's most complete image rehabilitations, proving how far studios would go to protect profitable talent. A rising Broadway and silent film actor in the 1920s, Kelly's life changed after a brawl in 1927 involving actor Ray Raymond, whose wife Dorothy McKay was having an affair with Kelly. What began as an argument became a beating that left Raymond dead 2 days later. Charged with manslaughter rather than murder, Kelly received a sentence of 1 to 10 years and ultimately served just 25 months. When he returned, Hollywood welcomed him back with surprising ease, motivated as much by his talent and bankability as by any idea of forgiveness. Even more startling, he later married Dorothy McKay, who herself had served time for hiding evidence after her husband's death. Their marriage created an eerie coda to the crime that had bound them together. Kelly's career surged again with roles in The Flying Tigers, The Glass Key, and Crossfire. By the time he died in 1956, many fans had no idea he had once killed a man. His journey from inmate to respected actor revealed Hollywood's willingness to overlook even homicide when profits and talent aligned, setting a template for future celebrity redemption arcs. The career casualty, Fatty Arbuckle. Roscoe "Fatty" Arbuckle's downfall remains one of Hollywood's most infamous scandals, an entire career erased by a death he was legally cleared of causing. Though acquitted of manslaughter after 3 trials, public opinion condemned him, making his case an early example of total career cancellation. Arbuckle's troubles began in 1921 at a Labor Day party in San Francisco's St. Francis Hotel, where actress Virginia Rapé fell gravely ill. At the time, Arbuckle was one of Hollywood's highest-paid stars, earning the equivalent of more than $14 million today. The case exploded across newspapers, reshaping his life and altering Hollywood's relationship with scandal and morality for decades to come. She died days later from peritonitis caused by a ruptured bladder, and the events in that hotel room remain contested nearly a century on. Prosecutors insisted Arbuckle's weight fatally injured Rapé during a sexual encounter, while the defense argued her bladder ruptured naturally due to a pre-existing condition. Despite this, sensationalist newspapers pushed lurid, unproven claims involving bottles and other objects. After 3 trials, Arbuckle was finally acquitted. As Collins notes, the first 2 juries deadlocked, and the third not only cleared him but apologized for the ordeal he had endured. The jury took just 6 minutes to vote not guilty, underscoring the weakness of the state's case. Still, the victory meant little for Arbuckle's future. The newly created MPPDA, led by Will Hayes, banned him from the screen, officially lifted months later, but essentially enforced by studios unwilling to hire him. His career collapsed anyway. Public opinion had turned so sharply that theaters refused his films, contracts vanished, and the beloved comedian's image was permanently shadowed by scandal. Arbuckle's downfall became Hollywood's first blueprint for responding to celebrity disgrace. The industry sacrificing a star to preserve its own reputation, guilt aside. He became the symbol of what critics saw as Hollywood's moral decay, and though legally innocent, headlines guaranteed the public never forgot the accusation. This gap between acquittal and lasting infamy defined his tragedy. Sensational reporting cemented impressions the courts could not erase. Eventually, he worked again only as a director under the name William Goodrich. Just as he began easing back into acting with Warner Brothers, he died of a heart attack in 1933 at 46, never regaining his former stature. Though not a killer in the eyes of the law, Arbuckle's permanent association with Rapé's death makes his case central to any discussion of Hollywood's treatment of stars tied to tragedy. His story shows how legal innocence rarely shields a celebrity from the harsher judgment of public opinion. We, the jury, find the defendant, Robert Blake, not guilty of first-degree murder. With that verdict, Blake, former child actor from the Our Gang shorts and later the Emmy-winning star of Beretta, became another figure whose acquittal failed to clear public suspicion. Known for his intense performances and gravelly voice, Blake's long career collapsed after the 2001 killing of his second wife, Bonnie Lee Bakley. Questions surfaced immediately. Blake claimed he left Bakley in their car to retrieve a gun he'd forgotten inside the restaurant, only to return and find her shot.
Investigators focused on the couple's volatile relationship. Blake had married her only after paternity tests confirmed he fathered her child, and witnesses described deep mutual distrust. Prosecutors alleged he killed her or hired others to do it, citing stuntmen who said Blake had approached them about murder. His defense countered with the absence of physical evidence and proposed that Bakley, who had a history of conning celebrities, might have been targeted by one of her previous victims. Blake walked free in criminal court, but was later found liable in civil court. As analyst James Morrison explains, the split verdict echoed the O.J. Simpson cases. The criminal jury found reasonable doubt, while the civil jury believed the balance of evidence pointed to Blake's responsibility. The civil verdict ultimately saddled Blake with a $30 million judgment, later cut to $15 million, which financially ruined him despite his criminal acquittal. That penalty, paired with unshakable suspicion, ensured Hollywood would never employ him again, no matter what the court decided. Though Blake insisted he never fired the gun, the jury wasn't convinced. This tension underscores the unresolved mystery surrounding the case, the divide between Blake's unwavering claims of innocence and the persistent doubts that kept him out of the industry and away from public sympathy. In many ways, Blake's fate echoed a modern version of the Fatty Arbuckle pattern. Here was a performer whose life became permanently overshadowed by a violent death, regardless of any legal outcome. Hollywood's refusal to rehire him after the acquittal reflected not only moral hesitation, but also pragmatic concerns about audience reactions to a man broadly suspected of killing his wife. Even though he was cleared in criminal court, Blake passed away in March 2023 at 89, having spent 20 years defined by Bonnie Lee Bakley's murder. He repeated his insistence on innocence in occasional interviews, yet the association never faded, showing how one event can eclipse a 6-decade career. "The baby," he said, "and I assumed it was yours. I expect an apology." "On second thought, ma'am, I owe you one. Sorry, baby." Turning to Las Vegas, we find Rex Bell's buried scandal. Bell exemplified Hollywood's smooth path into politics, a charismatic Western actor married to Clara Bow, who later became a Nevada businessman and lieutenant governor. Publicly, he looked polished and connected. Privately, he was rumored to have escaped consequences for a killing that never reached the press. Nevada historian Dr. Sarah Jenkins notes that Bell allegedly beat a man to death in a Vegas hotel in 1937. Although no charges were filed, because no case ever emerged, the story survives through sources tied to early Las Vegas and the Hollywood scene that shaped it. These accounts describe Bell confronting a man who had insulted Clara Bow. The dispute reportedly escalated inside a hotel linked to Bell's business dealings, turning violent and ending in the other man's death. Studio lawyers, according to Jenkins, erased the matter entirely. She explains that the incident shows how studio legal teams operated like private courts when protecting their stars. Since Bow's reputation remained profitable even as their marriage cooled, any scandal surrounding Bell threatened her image, giving the studio's strong motivation to smother the story. What separates this supposed killing from better-known Hollywood scandals is its total disappearance. Rather than hitting headlines and then being managed, the Bell incident appears to have been neutralized before any public record formed. Witnesses were allegedly paid off, authorities discouraged from acting, and evidence handled by fixers linked to both Hollywood and rising Las Vegas power players. Bell never faced charges, and those who knew anything reportedly vanished. This outcome reflected the flexible and loosely monitored power structure of 1930s Las Vegas, where entertainment, business, and politics blended easily. Bell's influence in this environment, strengthened by Hollywood connections, created a climate where even a serious allegation could be erased through money and leverage. His later political career, culminating in his role as Nevada's lieutenant governor from 1955 until his death in 1962, continued without a whisper of controversy. To the public, he remained a respectable actor-turned-statesman. If the killing happened as described, it never entered his official life story.
She maintained her dazzling smile. He maintained his silence. Their public images revealed none of what might have lingered beneath. Though Bow had stepped back from filmmaking by 1937, her legendary status still required protection from scandal by association. Bell's situation demonstrates the most absolute form of Hollywood cover-up, the incident no one ever learned about, the accusation that never touched the courts, the possible crime erased so fully that it survives only as a disputed historical whisper rather than a documented fact. This level of control reveals how deeply studios could suppress information during Hollywood's golden era, especially when tied to the rising power networks of early Las Vegas. With time erasing witnesses and evidence, the real truth behind the allegations remains permanently uncertain. What ultimately stands out is how easily severe accusations vanished when influence aligned, allowing even claims of homicide to disappear from public awareness. Spade Cooley, once celebrated as the king of Western swing and a beloved 1950s entertainer, exemplified this contradiction. His cheerful on-screen image, supported by film roles, music performances, and a wholesome persona, hid a capacity for violence that shocked investigators once exposed. Music historian Dr. Robert Thompson notes that Cooley's long career collapsed under the weight of one of entertainment's most infamous domestic murders, the torture and killing of his wife, Ella May, in 1961. After wrongly convincing himself she was unfaithful, Cooley inflicted hours of escalating cruelty, ultimately murdering her in front of their 14-year-old daughter. Melody witnessed beatings, burns, and stomping as her mother suffered more than 40 injuries, according to the medical examiner. Cooley first tried claiming she slipped in the shower, but evidence and his daughter's testimony destroyed that lie.
Because the violence was too public and extreme, no Hollywood influence could shield him. He received a life sentence, ending his entertainment career and redefining him from star to murderer. Cooley later died of a heart attack in 1969 after receiving a rare furlough to perform at a police benefit, collapsing shortly after a standing ovation and just before his scheduled parole. His sudden death added an eerie final note, highlighting how audiences could still cheer his artistry despite knowing his brutality. The contrast between his musical talent and his sadistic violence became the defining paradox of his legacy. His case shows how a single monstrous act can eclipse an entire career, leaving no space for redemption or ambiguity. A different Hollywood tragedy emerged decades later with the death of actor Johnny Lewis, whose story carried its own disturbing weight. Lewis, best known for Sons of Anarchy, descended into erratic behavior despite coming from a powerful entertainment lineage as the grandson of classic film star Loretta Young. Entertainment journalist Rebecca Santos explains that his connection to Hollywood royalty amplified the shock surrounding his final actions. Despite access to resources, Lewis's mental health issues and worsening instability led to a catastrophic breakdown in 2012. During a psychotic episode, Lewis killed his 81-year-old landlady, Catherine Davis, along with her cat. The ferocity of the attack, marked by strangulation and blunt force trauma, reflected a disintegrated sense of reality. After assaulting neighbors who tried to help, Lewis climbed onto the roof and fell to his death, ending the tragedy he had started moments earlier. Lewis's death came as he tried to flee, Santos said, and toxicology tests confirmed he had no drugs in his system, reinforcing the idea that his outburst stemmed from untreated mental illness rather than substance use. In the period leading up to the killing, Lewis had suffered head trauma in a motorcycle crash, which some specialists believed contributed to his mental decline. His situation reflects a modern Hollywood tragedy, the collision of celebrity lineage with the failures of contemporary mental health care. Even with family resources and industry access that could have enabled treatment, Lewis's unraveling continued unchecked until it ended in violence. His fall was not only figurative, he plunged from a rooftop after taking a life, a literal expression of the moral collapse that preceded it. The grandson of screen royalty died not amid privilege, but on a patch of concrete outside the home where he had just killed someone during what appeared to be a psychotic break. The contrast between Loretta Young's crafted image of purity and her grandson's violent end highlights how status and legacy cannot shield a family from tragedy. Though born into Hollywood aristocracy, Lewis ultimately faced a fate no influence could prevent once his mental health reached a critical breaking point. His case also marks a shift in how celebrity wrongdoing is handled across generations. The incident received unvarnished coverage rather than the concealment typical of his grandmother's era. Reporting on both the killing and its circumstances reflected a more modern transparency around celebrity violence, even when the offender carried a historic Hollywood name. Stampanato's threats, according to accounts, were terrifying, promising mutilation and hinting that if he couldn't do it himself, others would. This brings the narrative to Cheryl Crane, the teen who fatally intervened to protect her mother, Lana Turner. Her case is remembered as a killing widely regarded as self-defense against Turner's abusive gangster boyfriend, Johnny Stampanato. Film historian Margaret Collins notes that Crane, just 14, became central to one of Hollywood's most infamous real-life noir moments. Unlike most celebrity homicide cases, her act was deemed justified since she was protecting her mother from an established pattern of violence. The confrontation took place on April 4, 1958, inside Turner's home in Beverly Hills. Stampanato,
an enforcer tied to Mickey Cohn, had been involved with Turner for more than a year, a relationship defined by escalating threats and abuse. During an argument that night, the teen heard Stompanato threaten to disfigure her mother's face, prompting her to grab a kitchen knife. Believing Turner was in immediate danger, she stabbed him once in the abdomen, a wound that quickly proved fatal. Investigators then had to determine whether the act was defensive necessity or a chargeable crime committed by a minor under extreme stress. Authorities ultimately ruled the killing a justifiable homicide, citing the evidence and the documented threats made moments before the stabbing. Although legally cleared, Crane and Turner endured years of scrutiny, speculation, and distortion by sensationalist media. The studio system worked aggressively to contain the long-term damage to Turner's public persona, reframing the story as a mother and daughter endangered by a violent man.
Crane, however, struggled for years afterward, facing emotional turmoil, substance issues, and time in psychiatric institutions and reform facilities, fallout from both the event and the public pressure surrounding it. As she grew older, Crane found steadier ground, building a career in real estate and writing while remaining close to her mother. In her 1988 autobiography, Detour, A Hollywood Story, she recounted the Stompanato killing, reaffirming that she acted in self-defense and describing the trauma that shaped her life long after. The studio praised her actions as heroic, yet a life had still been taken. That fact underscores the weight of killing someone, no matter the justification. Although the courts ruled her actions necessary, the emotional cost of ending a life at 14 remained a burden no legal decision could erase. Crane's experience shows how a single violent act can define a lifetime, even when ruled justified. Though she later built a functional adult life, public attention continually returned to the Stompanato incident, fixing her identity to the moment she killed to survive. The Dynasty Disaster. Charles Chaplin Jr. Carrying one of entertainment's most iconic surnames, Charles Chaplin Jr. inherited expectations he could never meet. His lineage granted him access, protection, and influence, advantages that became crucial when he caused another person's death in a 1960s drunk driving crash, notes entertainment historian Thomas Henderson. Though less widely reported than other celebrity fatalities, the case reveals how Hollywood heritage could soften consequences that ordinary citizens would face. Because records were limited and some details deliberately obscured, the incident remains inconsistently described. Available accounts indicate that Chaplin Jr., impaired while driving, collided with another car, killing at least one person. Despite this, studio attorneys succeeded in reducing the charges, Henderson explains, illustrating how family prestige continued to sway legal outcomes. The case matters because it shows Hollywood privilege lingering after the studio system's collapse. Even without matching his father's fame, Chaplin Jr. still benefited from the Chaplin name, which carried more influence than his own modest career. He lacked his father's stature, yet inherited his shield. This dynamic reflects how generational fame sustains special treatment regardless of individual accomplishment. Chaplin Jr.'s limited success would not alone have granted him leniency, but his lineage provided access to resources that softened accountability for a fatal act. His struggles with alcohol and his early death in 1968 at age 42 deepened the sense of a life overshadowed by a legacy he could never equal, with the fatal crash standing as its bleakest moment. The sparse documentation surrounding the case further highlights the power of influence. Even as Hollywood's centralized authority waned, the Chaplin name remained strong enough to shape narratives and limit public scrutiny. Ultimately, Chaplin Jr.'s story reveals a clear example of inherited privilege, protection granted not for achievement, but for bloodline, and demonstrates how Hollywood's power to shield its own easily extended to the next generation.